What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. So today we're not doing as much gameplay. This is more of a concept video, but one that is very important that can help you improve if you use it correctly. So we're going to be going over analyzing your replays, and we're actually going to be going over a King's Cup gameplay of me in the finals, because you can usually learn you shouldn't analyze your wins as much. You should analyze your losses, because typically there's mistakes that you made. Sometimes it's matchups, yes, but most of the times there are mistakes that you made that could have been better, that you can learn from and apply in future matches so that you don't make the same mistakes again. So quickly, before I go into those replays, I'm going to go over some common mistakes that I see. So I mean, obviously placements, you should learn placements and know and always try to apply the same placements so that you don't have silly errors like that. There are mistakes where I see where people will sit on 10 elixir and waste elixir, and then there are mistakes to where people don't acknowledge or put any thought into whether their opponent's deck has one card in your deck that counters it really hard, or vice versa. So if you're playing Goblin Barrel, for example, you're always going to want to bait out their log. You don't want to just throw your Goblin Barrel knowing they have log for no reason, unless you're baiting it out for a defense. For example, like he has a Golem coming, so you bait out the Goblin Barrel, then you use Goblin Gang. There should always be a purpose behind your actions. You shouldn't just randomly do stuff. Another thing is know your archetypes, or at least know how decks interact. So Siege, the way Siege wins is typically by cycling or by negating or ignoring the tanks, knowing when to put it down, getting elixir advantage through their pushes. Beatdown. Okay, so this is a big rule that's going to be emphasized a ton in this gameplay, is when you the bigger beatdown. This is like a rule too. Like if you're playing Giant, then you should probably split the opposite lane of Lava Hound and Golem. If you're playing Lava Hound, you should push in the same lane as a Giant and the weaker side. And if you're playing Golem, you beat all other beatdowns because you have the biggest push possible. And beatdown always wants to go into the weak lane typically. So that's really important, because the bigger the push, the more that it can overwhelm other pushes. That's why typically you beat beatdown by going opposite lane, by pressuring and making them split their elixir so they can't build up that death ball push. And then with control, it's typically you just control the game, go opposite lane when you have to, stuff like that. Alright, so we'll start with one of these King's Cup battles, and then I'll go to my own replays and we'll kind of talk about it. So in both this replay and King's Cup and the replay I'm going to show you afterwards, I'm using a Giant Lightning deck. It's always been like a personal favorite of mine. And so it's kind of cool that even in the new meta, I'm able to play it as well. And I guess you guys will see that. I may do a deck guide on it soon if you guys want me to in the comments. But it's a really important thing, because especially when a Giant Lightning deck is pretty versatile in how you attack, you got to realize that you don't play the same deck the same way every single match. And that's important. So like right here, oh, and back then I took Barbs as like a counter to Golem meta, and I had Barbs in Tombstone. Almost came close enough to the connection of Barb, but that actually became popular afterwards. But that being said, I could have won these matches. The thing is, okay, so, and like I already explained the rule of bigger beatdown, like the bigger beatdown wants to go down the same lane. That's something that I would split push early and perhaps get a lot of damage, or I would be going down the same lane early. Yeah, you win early game, but once it gets to double elixir, the bigger tank wins. And that's something that I really would have been good to know at the time, or a good playstyle tip to know. So you guys can know that for the future. But yeah, let's just watch this replay and look for mistakes. So I was waiting for that Tombstone to die, and then I immediately still push opposite lane with that push. I make him defensive lightning. That gives me a pretty huge, I get a huge amount of damage and a troop lead. So it was good tracking rotation by me, and I did a good job, and I got a lot of damage, and I'm up 2 elixir. There's a baby dragon on the field, but regardless, pretty good job there. I may be okay. So this is one of the situations to where there are definitely times in the matches to where you should just take damage, and I think at that time it may have been good for me to take damage. And then here's mistake number 2. Let me pause this. So mistake number 1 is a lot of the time when you have an elixir lead, it's better just to take some damage, or hear me out. At least allow yourself, okay, so not necessarily let an entire baby dragon sit on my tower and take it down, but what I could have done is I could have waited for the baby dragon to lock on, and then I could have played archers and killed it. Yes, I take damage, but now I have counter pushing troops. That elixir is effectively still alive, and he will either take damage on that tower that's already really low, or he'll have to counter it, and then I'll maintain elixir lead. Instead, I played Tombstone because I didn't want to get a single hit, and I played Archers. Yes, I'd effectively stopped all damage now, but that's not necessarily a good thing because now I don't have as big an elixir lead. And mistake number 2 is playing a giant into a golem. Yes, you may get some damage, but you are just building up his already huge push and allowing him to support the golem exactly how he wants to. If anything, even though I had no damage, I should have gone to the left side tower and rushed to that side, making him split his elixir. His tombstone actually could have... Wait, I feel like that could be like one lower and like... I mean, it's effectively the same placement. I don't know. But that doesn't really matter. The point is, I'm building up his push, and look, I get one hit, like not worth it at all. And then my barbs help me shut down the push, but still, it effectively, what happens, even when people don't get damaged this late in the game with a like beatdown like this, you're having to over defend, like that Mega Minion almost instantly dies, and then he keeps up tempo, and he effectively maintains elixir advantage. And Three Musketeers does this as well as beatdown, where they keep up this momentum, where they start their tank at the back on their weak side tower, and you aren't able to get through it, and you can't push past. So what you should do is apply opposite lane pressure. It doesn't matter how much damage is on the tower at this point. This is how this matchup plays out, and this is something that you have to acknowledge. And of course, it's different with different matchups. And while I have almost, I mean, I'm not trying to like say I'm great or anything, but like I have most matchups memorized just through playing this game so much. But it's something that you kind of have to learn. It goes along with like archetypes and stuff. So, and I mean, I get a little bit of an opportunity to attack, and I messed up that log. You can see me, like rolling, like I was like yelling at myself during this. Oh yeah, also just, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. But and then at this point, I'm not defending badly, but it's just the matchup is, if I would have played the matchup better, that was a big thing. It's funny to go back and watch. At one point, I was like eating my shirt like this. I was like, yeah, I really like the taste of shirts. No, but yeah, he ends up taking the game. So I mean, like, I started out great, but it was really just I needed to go opposite lane, and he ends up winning, and that's a really big deal. So going over that was nice. And then just too, it's cool to come and look back at this matches. I mean, that match was, I mean, that was my main deck, so that was pretty much, I mean, I won one, but you know, learning that much from wins. That was pretty much the gist of the other two I lost as well, was he played beatdown decks and I didn't push opposite lane because I got a lot of damage early and I was actually ahead in damage, but then I decided to not switch lanes, even though I kind of had to in that matchup. And I think that was an important lesson to learn. Also, just thanks a bunch to all you guys. I actually started my YouTube channel like right after this, and people were like, at the time, were making fun of me because like nervous and I didn't have any emotions or whatever. But it came a long way. Have come a long way. I think I wrote in the comments at the time, like 6 months ago, that I only have I'm a competitive player, but I only have 200 followers on Twitter or something. And then I hadn't even started a YouTube channel, so I had 0 subscribers or like 2 or something. So we've come a long way, almost 30,000 subscribers, and I'd like to thank you guys for that. And now let's head over to the replay that I prepared. So I ended up getting 12 wins in this anyway, so it didn't really matter. But and this is a counter deck. I don't have log, and he has Inferno, which even though I have lightning, he has no other lightningable targets really other than Bandit, which is kind of weird in this deck. He usually has Knight. But Giant Lightning has always kind of been weak to Spellbait, especially this version I'm running now, which is like a cycle Giant Lightning. But that doesn't mean you can't win. It's always better, and this is a mentality that you should have, it's always better to realize that you make mistakes in every loss you have than it is to say, oh, well, he had higher levels or he had a better matchup, and then you forget it and you move on. While it is good to not linger on losses, you should realize what you could have done better, because you can't change your matchups once a game has started, but you can change how you play those matchups, and you can change how you play in future matches. So it's if you want to improve, it's better not to whine. It's better to realize what you could have done better, because then you can improve in the future, and it's just a better mentality to have. It makes you a less angry person. But yeah, so obviously I made a big mistake at the beginning there. Kind of unfortunate that he rushed at the same time I was starting my push. But I didn't manage that push very well. Bandit was kind of tough. But that's not, this match goes on much longer. So this is, afterwards is really what I wanted to critique anyway. So tough so far. He gets a little bit of damage. That princess is half HP, so I realize that she will die to Ice Spirit. I did Giant there to block her, and then I activated King Tower, so that's fine. I will say, this is probably a mistake though. What I should have done is I should have split skeletons, and then I should have Ice Spirit her to kill her, and then I should have tornadoed. Because the problem in this deck, so while against Yao Yao, I should have been playing my Giants at the bridge and pressuring opposite lane. Against this deck, I have to build up enough Elixir to Lightning, otherwise I will never get damage. So what I have to do is I have to start my Giant at the back, and so I didn't want to have to defend at the same time that I was placing Giant there. Like I want to be starting Giant after he's attacked, because once his Goblin Barrel is out of hand, he can't pressure me for playing Giant, and that's kind of how when you're playing a beatdown, which this is a version of beatdown, even though it's cycle, to be playing after he attacks, so that he can't punish me, same lane or opposite lane for that matter. So what I should have done there is, like I said, split skeletons, Ice Spirit, and then Tornado, and I wouldn't have had a wasted Giant to where he ends up just dying. So I actually let Bandit connect there, and he actually misses Rocket, so I get a chance back into this game. I couldn't defend Bandit because I needed to save up for Lightning, so that's like an instance to where beatdown does this often. It takes damage so that it can build up a push and take your tower all at once. And this is basically what I ended up doing here. That was a pretty nice Tornado. The zap was unnecessary though. And I basically almost ended up taking a tower. So here's this next big mistake is I see Princess coming, so I'm like, oh well, I need to Executioner so she doesn't get hit on the tower. But I mean, that's a stupid mistake because this is going to connect with tower, and I can already Lightning, so this is basically a 5 wasted Elixir. If anything, I could have started because I know he has to rocket the left side, so I could have started the Executioner at the back right, even though that's usually a bad play. So that was another mistake. So he's going to go Bandit, and he's going to go that. I defend decently, don't take any damage. Alright, so here's the next big lesson. So I decided to start in the middle because Princess is going to give me Lightning value. Even though he pulls it to opposite lane, I end up getting damage on the right side. I get a decent amount of Elixir trades out of this right side. I get a little bit of damage on the right side, and I also get damage on the left side, and he leaves the Giant alone because he can't really do anything about it. I predict the Princess there. That was pretty nice. He does the stupid rocket again. Well, I mean, he kills the Executioner, so I guess it's only -1 trade, but I just want to keep him from playing Goblin Game in the middle, so that's why I played Giant right there. But that was a pretty decent Inferno by him, actually, and a really good log, too. That was well played by him, actually. But I think something that's really important is maybe I should have just cycled cards instead, because when you're playing a match and something... I gave him a rocket value, too. That was bad. But this is a pretty good push. Like, I get damage. I mean, against this deck in particular, like, I'm getting a lot of pressure when I play the Giant in the middle. So I think it's really important to recognize during a match what's working for you and what isn't. If something isn't working, don't do it over and over again. Fix your rotation. Do something different. Because if you're losing every single time, it's not going to magically start working. Especially if your opponent isn't just making, like, big misplays. But if something is working, try to replicate it and try to keep the rotation in that way that it favors you. So, like, what I should have been doing in this match is possibly starting my troops in the back, maybe giving him like a rocket on the Night Witch, and then putting a Giant in the middle like I did last time, and then Lightning, and then zapping if I have to. Instead, I end up just giving him enough Goblin Barrel damage, and over time I lose because my pushes weren't significantly or weren't strong enough. But yeah, so there were several mistakes I made through that game, and that's just one example of being able to look at your mistakes and learn from them instead of just blaming matchup or any other circumstance that you might find to excuse yourself, because it's better when you blame yourself and you correct those mistakes than it is to just shrug off losses as unwinnable, because very rarely in this game is something actually going to truly be unwinnable. Alright, so I think that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have any other like ideas that you want to know, or just matchup dependent things that you don't know how to play a certain matchup, yeah, it may be disadvantageous, but there's always almost something that you can do to at least give yourself a chance in a match. If there's any of scenarios like that, I may include that in a future video or just answer it in the comments. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again next time.